Hello, I'm Dr. Joel Wallach, and we're here to talk about health and longevity today. I am a comparative pathologist, and I've done 20,000 autopsies, 17,000 some change, over 454 species of animals and 3,000 humans. This is for the Center for the Biology of Natural Systems, a composite of Washington University, St. Louis, the St. Louis Zoo, and the Shaw's Botanical Gardens. And I also have a degree, a postdoctoral fellowship in comparative pathology, which is the equivalent of a PhD in comparative pathology, and I'm a primary care physician. In that study, the Center for the Biology of Natural Systems, we eliminated 900 different diseases in animals which still plague people. Because we realized there were nutritional deficiencies, we increased the nutritional supplementation of zoo animals and eliminated all the diseases. And of course, this is what saved the panda. The pandas were down to just maybe a dozen pandas left in zoos, and they were about ready to all die out. And then suddenly, we heard about Ling Ling, right? And suddenly we had all these other baby pandas. What's happening? I finally got to do an autopsy on one of them, and it was just starving to death because they're feeding it nothing but bamboo. And so I said, let's give them some dog food. Oh, you can't. This is an exotic animal. You can't give them dog food. So we gave them dry dog food, and now we have more pandas. We know what to do. They got to give them birth control, okay? We've tripled the lifespan of animals with this information. And basically, if you look back 60 years ago, an old dog was 8 years old, 10-year-old dog is 25. In that same time span, we humans have added 2 or 3 months to our lifespan. We didn't triple it like we did for animals because we're using drugs and we use nutrition for animals. We eliminate every birth defect you can name and 10 times that many you can't in animals by supplementing preconception. We knew in 1936 our soil was depleted of minerals. This is U.S. Senate document 264, and it was a 2-year hearings done by the U.S. Senate to determine why our soils were dead. Why did we have the Dust Bowl? Why did we have the Great Depression? They blamed it on depletion of minerals in the soil in 1936, but nobody proposed the reason why our soil was depleted. If you ask even yet today, environmentalists, professors of agriculture at big agricultural universities, you ask them, why is our soil so depleted of minerals? They'll always say because of poor farming practices, because of poor farming practices. That's not true. Nothing has changed as far as farming practices. We plow, we plant, we harvest. We plow, we plant, we harvest. And so what is it? Well, no more wood ashes in the gardens, no more silt from floods, and we've cut off the food supply to our land. We've cut off the food supply to our oceans. That's why we're in trouble. Obesity is not due to eating too much and lack of exercise. Obesity is, in fact, a simple nutritional deficiency. And there's no end in sight for the obesity epidemic because those nutrients are disappearing from our food faster and faster. The symptoms you get from that deficiencies are cravings, binge eating, and the munchies. Experts tell us that 70% of our kids under the age of 12 are overweight. 40% of our kids under the age of 12 are obese, 30 pounds or more of their ideal weight for their height. And this has nothing to do with eating too much or lack of exercise. This is caused by nutritional deficiency, totally preventable, totally reversible quite quickly at ½ pound to 2 pounds a day. And this is Ivan, of course, met him about 3 years ago. And Ivan weighed 423 pounds when I met him. He lost, on our program, with our supplementation of nutrients, lost 17 pounds in the first week. He lost 60 pounds in the first 30 days. That's 2 pounds a day. And he dropped down from 400 pounds to 165 pounds in 7 months. And 2 years later, his picture's on the right. And he, of course, 2 years later is still looking good and hasn't gained back 1/4 of an ounce. And this is because this is a simple nutritional deficiency disease. You take the nutrients, it goes away. You take the nutrients, you don't get fat. Just that simple. Osteoporosis and arthritis, simple mineral deficiencies, simple vitamin deficiencies. It's not a complex disease at all. It's a simple nutritional deficiency. Every tissue in our body, every organ in our body wants to go away. It's kind of like sand on a beach or paint on your house. Over time, getting beat up from the weather and the temperature changes and so forth, what happens is everything goes away. Well, if you're not taking in the raw materials to maintain it, like paint your house every year, right, that kind of thing, change your oil every 3,000 miles, you're going to have problems. And arthritis, and talking about the coming epidemic of arthritis. That's because we no longer have the right nutrients in our food anymore. We'll get into that in a moment. Andy Young from the Civil Rights Movement, also he was the ambassador to the United Nations under Jimmy Carter. He was the mayor of Atlanta for a couple of terms. And he called me from San Diego to come to Atlanta in his home and speak to him because of my work in sickle cell anemia not being genetic. And we were talking about that, and I noticed he was limping. I said, with all due respect, Mr. Ambassador, why are you limping? He says, well, I got bone-to-bone arthritis in both my knees, and I'm scheduled at Emory University, the group that fired me for my cystic fibrosis research, to have a double knee replacement. I said, sir, with all due respect, I can regrow your cartilage. I can support and promote maintenance and repair by supplementing with a program we call the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack. He said, well, these are the best surgeons, orthopedic surgeons in the world, and they say you can't. And I said, well, sir, with all due respect, they're liars. Okay, we can, in fact, support and promote maintenance and repair, and you will regrow your cartilage. And he didn't want to have the surgery, so he canceled the surgery and let me rebuild his knees. In 90 days, we rebuilt his knees, and we became very good friends, and we do lots of great things around the world together. Diabetes, there's an epidemic right now in the world. It's doubling. Diabetes is doubling almost every year now in America. Right now in America, 30% of Americans either have diabetes or prediabetes. It's breaking us financially. It's breaking the American medical system financially. Okay, it's breaking our country financially. It is one of the big contributing factors to the national debt of almost $19 trillion is type 2 diabetes. Why is there an epidemic? Because there's none of this mineral in the soil. Remember, it's a deficiency of a single mineral. We've known that for almost 80 years. This fellow here, Jerry Murphy, owns one of the largest medical diagnostic labs in America, Gamma Labs. And he had terrible type 2 diabetes. It was running well over 200. His blood sugar was running well over 200. His A1C hemoglobin was like 9 or 12 instead of 5 or below. And to make a long story short, we made a wager because we had a mutual friend who said I could help him with his diabetes. And he was very skeptical, of course, working with the medical community. And he says, look, Wallach, we'll be best friends. We'll do a lot of good things for America together if you can do what you say. If you can't, I will destroy you. I'm going to make a CD. I'll have bounty hunters pass them out everywhere you go, and I will dog you until you're destroyed if you fail. He said, okay, Jerry, you're on. He was quite shocked that I so quickly said, okay, let's do it. Well, to make a long story short, in 3 months' time, his A1C hemoglobin was below 5, and his blood sugar was down to like 90, or had been running 240. Okay? And he's now totally diabetes-free. He's a wonderful friend, and we just love him to pieces because he does great things for us too. Type 2 diabetes has got to be genetic because we have 3 generations of type 2 diabetics in our family. No, that's not true. Have you ever heard of gluten intolerance? Gluten intolerance is generational. It's not genetic. It's not an allergy, but it is generational. And it causes eczema, dermatitis of all kinds, belly problems, belly pain, headaches, all kinds of nasty stuff. Celiac disease, appendicitis, diverticulitis, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, asthma, chronic bronchitis, pneumonia every wintertime, eczema, rosacea, dermatitis, psoriasis, infertility. It can contribute to 1,000 other diseases because these other diseases are nutritional deficiencies, and gluten intolerance changes the efficiency of absorption out of your intestines. If you can't absorb the nutrients, you have a problem. But let's say, let's talk about type 2 diabetes. And you only have 2% of the mineral you need to prevent diabetes in the soil where you're living and you're eating from local farmers markets. And now you have a gluten intolerance and you only have 10% of your availability of absorption. So what's 10% of 2%? 0.2%. You're going to get diabetes. It has nothing to do with genetics. And here is the villi, those little red finger-like projections on the left-hand side of your screen. And these villi increase the absorptive surface of the intestine. Well, here's a study on white rats. On your left-hand side are the healthy villi. You can see the little villi. This is a microscopic picture, obviously. The normal ones, you can see all the increased surface for absorption. In the middle picture, those same group of rats were put on a heavy gluten diet for 6 months. You can see the loss of the villi and the scar tissue beginning to form in between them. On the right-hand side, it's a year of a heavy gluten diet, and you look at all the scar tissue, they've lost almost 100% of their villi, and the intestinal lining is replaced with scar tissue. How do you absorb nutrition through there? You can't. And this is what gluten does to you. It's kind of like putting poison ivy on your skin. You get a contact dermatitis. With gluten, you get a contact enteritis. Okay, and inflammation of the intestines is caused by this protein, which is very, very irritating. Okay, now the nice thing about this is if a 10-year-old kid or a 3-year-old kid or a 6-month-old kid gets on a gluten-free diet, in a couple of weeks' time, you're going to see a dramatic benefit, particularly if you're giving them the 90 essential nutrients. Let's say somebody in their 20s and 30s and 40s gets on a gluten-free diet. Within a month, you're going to see something dramatic in a positive way, and it might take them a full year to repair. People who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s have been eating gluten 5 times a day and oatmeal for breakfast every day, drinking a couple of beers every Friday night, and having bread and pasta and crackers and gluten and whole grains all the time. It might take them 2 years to get a return to normal on a gluten-free diet, but they might show some dramatic thing you can see as a benefit within maybe 6 months. It just depends on how long and how severe the gluten damage is. Here's a perfect example. Little you see on your left was born with eczema and asthma. His mother was born with the same eczema and asthma. She's 28 years old when she delivered him. She'd had 3 miscarriages. and she had the same eczema and asthma, and she's breastfeeding him. So we gave her a gluten-free diet. We put her on the 90 essential nutrients, 16 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 3 fatty acids, and in 2 weeks' time, her asthma or eczema she'd had for 28 years went away. In the same 2 weeks, you see in the middle there, his asthma and eczema went away in 2 weeks' time because he's getting all his nutrients through his mother's breast milk. Now, the interesting thing about this, the pediatrician who's caring for him, the only thing he told the mother was, here's some hydrocortisone cream, rub it on his skin to prevent the itching. And also, I told her to clip his fingernails and put mittens on his hands so he wouldn't scratch himself in his sleep. Well, here he is on the right at 2 years of age, and you can see how happy he is. You can tell by looking at him, he doesn't have asthma and eczema. We see this all the time in kids, and the ones on the left have their eczema, dermatitis, psoriasis, and the ones on the right, they've been without gluten for anywhere from a month to 6 months, and they're getting the 90 essential nutrients. You can see the difference, very dramatic. Cancer is not a genetically transmitted disease. It is a self-inflicted disease. Everything you do either prevents cancer or causes cancer. And so let's have a look. Doctors and researchers, they're so interested because it's such a horrible disease, they want to run in and get the cure right away. And they fail every time to find the cure. The first prevention research was done and published in 1912. It was on the benefits of selenium in preventing cancer. They published it in Popular Mechanics magazine. Now, why did they publish something like that in Popular Mechanics magazine? That's because they brought it to all the medical journals of the day and they wouldn't publish it. That's nutrition. We're not interested in that. That was 1912. Well, in 1998, the University of Arizona redid the same study, redid it, got the same exact results, showing they could reduce the risk of prostate cancer by 65%, 69%. You reduce the risk of breast cancer by 32%, reduce the risk of colorectal cancer by 95% by supplementing with selenium. Published it in the Annals of Medicine, which is a very well-respected medical journal. High-fiber diets don't cut colon cancer rates. That's another failed theory. Bacon, ham, sausages are a big cancer threat, equal to smoking and working in an asbestos environment. Now, I've been yelling about this for 45 years since I did those autopsies in the Center for the Biology of Natural Systems. And the World Health Organization 2 weeks ago made the announcement. The World Health Organization will publish a report on Monday, which was 2 weeks ago, on the dangers of eating processed meats. The World Cancer Research Fund has warned for several years that there is strong evidence that consuming a lot of processed meats, such as ham, bacon, and salami, increases the risk of colon cancer and many other types of cancer, okay? They also say that I'm quoting them now, probably all red meat causes cancer. That's not true. It's how you cook the red meat, okay, will be a factor. This was a study published in 1998 from the University of South Carolina, and they were working on the Harvard Nurses Health Study, 90,000 nurses, 20 years, and their piece was to evaluate the rate of breast cancer in women and how they cook their food. Okay, they're getting down into that area of interest. Well, they found out that the women who cooked their meat very well done, where the fat was severely browned or burnt, increased their risk of breast cancer by 462%. The ones who cooked their meat medium rare and the fat remained white reduced the risk of breast cancer by 462%. So that's a 900% difference between the most extreme you're going to get it to the most extreme you're not going to get it. And what a wonderful thing. Just how you cook your food determines whether you're actually going to get breast cancer or not. And then there was some wonderful research by Dr. Gerhard Schrauser, great biochemist from University of California, who showed very clearly that you could reduce the risk of breast cancer by 82% just by supplementing with 200 micrograms, 1/5 of a milligram of the trace mineral selenium. Dementia, there's 5 different types of dementia. There's no law that says you can't have all 5. Vascular dementia, arteries are clogged in your brain, same way they're clogged in your heart and your kidneys. Alzheimer's disease, a cholesterol deficiency, Korsakoff syndrome, a deficiency of a single vitamin, Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, which is the deficiency of that single vitamin, and also MS mixed in with it, multiple sclerosis. Vitamin B12 deficiency, dementia, you can have all 5 of these at the same time. Alzheimer's disease is caused by a cholesterol deficiency. It is not genetic, not caused by aluminum. Dr. Fred Kern, professor of medicine at the University of Colorado, was training a bunch of newly graduated medical doctors on how to examine seniors. And he found this chart of an 88-year-old guy. He says, come on, let's go examine this guy. Goes in the examining room and he looks at him. He says, is this you? He points to the chart and says, is this you? Yeah. He says, the chart here says you're 88 years old. You don't look that old. He says, yeah, people say I look like I'm 50. And he says, well, what do you attribute your youthful looks to when you're 88 years old? And he said, I eat 25 eggs a day. I've been doing it for 17 years. I'm going to do it for another 100 years. Well, of course, this is not what Dr. Kern was looking for in front of these students. And I didn't say it in the article, but I guarantee you, he sat down, he's fanning himself with his clipboard. He said, okay, sir, why are you eating 25 eggs a day? And the guy stands up, throws his chest out, throws his shoulders back and said, because it makes me more studly. Now, you think about that. When you look at testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, adrenal hormones, they're all steroid hormones, and they're 95% by weight cholesterol. They're 95% by weight cholesterol. You want a cholesterol-restricted diet, and you're taking statin drugs to lower your cholesterol, there's nobody home anymore. You get erectile dysfunction, low T. Women go into menopause when they're 35 years old and start getting hot flashes and night sweats, and they stop cycling when they're 35, 40 years old because they're not making enough hormones. You get adrenal exhaustion. But even more importantly than all that, we had a new disease, a new big boy disease called Alzheimer's disease. 45 years ago, Alzheimer's disease didn't exist, even by another name. Today, it's the number 4 killer of adults over the age of 65. It's driven. It's a physician-caused disease. 75% of the human brain weight is the white matter of the brain, the myelin. It's called myelin. It's the insulation material of the brain. And this myelin that makes up 75% of your brain weight is 100% cholesterol. So you want a cholesterol-restricted diet, no more cholesterol in your blood, or very little because you're getting it down to like 100 with statin drugs, you're going to get Alzheimer's disease. It's an Alzheimer's disease is a preventable disease. It's a reversible disease. And this is the entire story of saturated fat and cholesterol in Time magazine. On your right-hand part of your screen, Time magazine, Eat Butter, big scoop of butter on the cover. And this is a article, obviously a cover story, 5 pages, talks about the story with Ansel Keys and how he got Procter & Gamble to endorse a diesel engine submarine lubricant for cooking as opposed to butter, cream, lard, and eggs. In this one on the right-hand side, Time magazine, Eat Butter, this is from June 23, 2014. It says, scientists labeled saturated fat the enemy and why they were wrong. You need to read that one, and you'll realize how badly you've been defrauded by the medical system and the pharmaceutical industry. This is my favorite slide on Alzheimer's disease. The mother is 82 years old, the son's 58. They both have Alzheimer's disease. They're both in the same nursing home. They both have the same doctor. They're on the same cholesterol-restricted diet, and they're on the same statin drug prescribed by that doctor. The doctor also owns the nursing home they're in. You should be getting a picture here. Somebody needs to go to jail. Cardiovascular disease, we've already talked about this briefly. Congestive heart failure, deficiency of a single vitamin. Cardiomyopathy of heart disease. Keyshawn disease is a deficiency of a single mineral. Coronary artery disease is caused by inflammation, eating fried foods, processed meats, oils, microwave popcorn, all that kind of stuff. And then coronary thrombosis is caused by an omega-3 essential fatty acid deficiency. None of these cardiovascular diseases is caused by what? Cholesterol or saturated fat. It was a sales campaign to sell Crisco. Procter & Gamble gave the American Heart Association, brokered by Ansel Keys, $1.7 million to endorse Crisco and demonize cholesterol. The individuals on Earth, the culture on Earth that has the fewest cardiovascular events are the Inuit Eskimos above the Arctic Circle. No less than a dozen times a year, there's articles printed in scientific journals on these peoples. And they're kind of unique. They just don't get cardiovascular disease. And yet, 98% of their traditional diet above the Arctic Circle is red meat and fat. They eat nothing but whale meat and whale blubber, walrus meat and walrus blubber, seal meat and seal blubber, bear meat and bear fat. They don't eat vegetables or fruit. They don't eat nuts and grain. Their cholesterols run 350 to 500. They don't get cardiovascular disease until they come down into the lower 48 and eat like us. Here's one of the bad boys when it comes to cardiovascular disease, microwave popcorn. We're seeing more and more kids, we're talking about 8, 10-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds dying of heart disease, coronary artery disease, because what? Oh, they're being babysat with microwave popcorn. Microwave popcorn contributes to 50,000 heart attacks a year, 20,000 deaths. Front page story in the USA Today. Salt is not bad. Salt has 2 essential nutrients in it, sodium and chloride, required for all kinds of chemical reactions inside cells. Can't live without sodium and chloride. And of course, chlorine is also required to make stomach acid to keep your stomach sterile, to help pepsin, the enzyme, digest proteins, amino acids, and help the Castle's intrinsic factor to absorb B12. Also to absorb most minerals, you're going to require stomach acid. You're going to get reflux if you don't have enough stomach acid to keep your stomach sterile, because yeast and bacteria will grow in there. And so you need stomach acid to keep your stomach sterile. Anybody who tells you to restrict your salt because of high blood pressure should be put in jail. Somebody needs to go to jail here. 1982, salt a new villain. 2014, salt doesn't cause high blood pressure. The FDA moved from the 7 food group pyramid to the plate. Now, their mantra has been to the general public, just eat well, you get everything you need. Eat plenty of dark fruits and vegetables to get antioxidants, and also eat the 4 food groups. You're going to get everything you need. Don't supplement, you could overdose. And this has been a terrible, terrible, terrible event in humanity's development because, as you will see in a moment, you cannot get everything you need just by eating foods of different colors and eating well. This is a 100-year study from 1914 to 2014. And of course, they referred back to U.S. Senate Document 264 published in 1936. Our farm soils are depleted of vital minerals, and as a result, our foods are literally starved of nutrition. Medicine cannot compensate for this deficiency. U.S. Senate Document 264, 1936. And the minerals in our soil over the past 100 years, 1914 to 2014, have been depleted by 85%. You can see the chart and the graph on the right. You can see the extreme dip in the mineral values of our soil. Okay? Then in the bottom line, and again, this comes from last year, 2014, USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, reports that 95% of all Americans are minerally deficient. What more do you need? What more do you need to understand that you must supplement? No matter how well you eat, you're a billionaire, it doesn't matter, you're an athlete, it doesn't matter. If you're a farmer, it doesn't matter. If you don't supplement, you're in trouble. Worse yet, if you don't supplement and supplement your children are in trouble. Remember, the experts are saying that our children will be the first generation of Americans that do not live as long as their parents. To me, that's very, very scary, but we have the power, we have the knowledge to fix this. But we're going to have to be very proactive here because the government's not going to do it, and guess what? The doctors aren't going to do it. We need water for life, we need oxygen for life, and you need the 90 essential nutrients for life. Your DNA, RNA, your genes, your telomeres, the little end caps on your chromosomes will fail without these nutrients. You have to have them every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week of every month of every year. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. It's just that simple. You cannot live without them. You need 16 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 3 fatty acids. You have to have them. Your genes, your DNA, RNA, and telomeres must have these things. Otherwise, you can have the greatest genes in the world, but they're not going to perform. Your body has the ability to rebuild itself. Your body wants to heal itself, but you have to give it raw materials for that to happen. You cannot build a house without brick and mortar. You cannot build a house without roofing shingles. You cannot build a house without wood for framing and infrastructure. You need nails and screws and bolts and nuts. Okay, same way with our body. You may have the best genes in the world, but without the 90 essential nutrients, as they say in France, there ain't nothing going to happen. Okay? And so I just hope you remember the fact that we have less than 20% of the nutrients necessary in our baby foods. Our kids' generation will be the first generation of America that do not live as long as their parents. It's not a genetic thing. It's not destined. But if you don't supplement them, that prediction will come true. So I urge you to give everybody you know for birthdays, holidays, anytime a present's due, for graduations in schools and so forth, getting married, getting engaged, going out together on a regular basis, give them the 90 essential nutrients. Our babies will be born normal. People will live a long time. Your kids will outlive you, which is the way it's supposed to be. And I want to thank you for being such a great audience. Contact your Longevity associate and find out how you get involved. Become part of the Longevity Nation. And we're going to save America. Even more important than that, with this information, we can save the world. And God bless you.